Okay, so this is going to be a case study for Quality Street, which is the 1956 advertisement for the brand. We're going to go through this case study fairly quickly. This is something that you guys can set up at home really, really simply. So all I've done is on a PowerPoint added in different key questions, and this is something that I would give my students to help them find out information about the brand itself. Now, if you go straight to Google and you type in Quality Street, there's loads of really useful websites to have a look at. So there is the Nestle website itself. There's also Wikipedia, which talks a little bit about the Macintosh brand. And there is another website as well, which takes a lot of its information from Wikipedia, but is perhaps a little bit more visually engaging for you guys to look at. So I'm going to go through this fairly quickly, and then I'm going to have a look at how this applies in terms of context as well. And remember, you guys can pause the video at any point to get more information, to perhaps check your own notes. And if you've got any questions or comments, you can always pop them in the comments box below, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. So, when and how did Quality Street start? So, Quality Street was created by a company called Macintosh, and this was created by John Macintosh in 1890, so the sweets have been going for a long time. He opened a factory in Halifax, so that's in the north of England, and initially it was mixing toffee and chocolate to create a more affordable product. But in 1936, it was his son Harold who invented the Quality Street brand, which distributed different varieties of these toffee chocolates to the general public. The audience were lower class to those who normally bought boxed chocolates. Boxed chocolates at the time were a luxury item. They were really expensive. And initially they were only given sort of as like a gift on a first date or to somebody who you really admired. So this made the chocolates more affordable, and specifically it was putting the chocolates not only with the toffee that made them cheaper, but also putting them into a tin and individually wrapping the chocolates as well that made them more accessible to this lower demographic. So the primary demographic for this brand is actually working class families who are perhaps 25 to 45 and who would be somewhere between C2 to E and would probably be classed as strugglers. But the secondary demographic are the traditional chocolate audience, B to C1 aspirers who would perhaps be giving it as a gift to a loved one. Now, at the time, the Second World War had been over for some time, but there was still a considerable deficit, so there was still a lack of money around, and there was a huge divide between rich and poor, which was another reason for making the chocolates so accessible to a lower class demographic. The company does have a brand and it does have a logo. So Macintosh had the purple logo that we still see today, which is written in a sans serif cursive font when they created this Quality Street product. And although it's adapted slightly, that purple colour has still been included today, and it's a sign of real quality and sort of high class to have purple colouring in your product. The mascots, Major Quality and Miss Sweetly, are still associated with the brand today, but we don't see them on the packaging or in the advertisements as much anymore. And I think that's because there's been a move away from the Regency period that they're based on. Because obviously at the time, looking on better times, having got no money, it was a way of sort of providing that nostalgia, whereas today we don't necessarily need that as much. The focus at the time following the war was very much based on tradition, so we've got huge family values which we can see within the advertisement ourselves. Now, Christianity is still the major religion at the time, so this links to those traditional beliefs that the public are meant to hold. And the population, as we've just mentioned, were nostalgic for better times, which is why they might be sort of drawn to this Regency dress that Major Quality and Miss Sweetly have. Women had much less power than men, but following the stresses of the Second World War, there was a greater emphasis for them to stay at home and provide this nuclear family and be housewives, but they had had a greater role within the war, and so they were starting to push for greater rights, and it was the starting point really for a wave of feminism. Men at the time, though, were suffering from the effects of the war more so than women, it could be argued. There was a great focus on family life, and it was believed that to help their integration back into society, the women needed to step back to help the men adapt. Unemployment was decreasing because there were new job roles being made available for men, so things like rag and bone men, doorstop traders, all of that was emerging at the time, and manual labour still existed because it was crucial for the economy. Now the purple colour, as we've said, on Macintosh's original logo is still used today. It's part of the brand identity, and they were one of the leaders of boxed chocolates. So they emphasised the sharing aspect of the sweets, which is what sort of links back to this family ideology that the brand holds. And without that, really, we wouldn't have the competitors such as Roses, Celebrations, Miniature Heroes, all that sort of stuff that we have today. So how does this fit into our context then? Well, obviously, historically, Macintosh created this in 1890, but the Quality Street product itself started in 1936. The advertising campaign that we're looking at is part of a larger campaign of the 1950s, but our particular set text is from 1956. Originally, chocolates were only affordable by the upper classes, and although the Second World War ended sort of 11 years previous to our product, the branding references the Regency period, which is from 1811 to 1820, and the products we still use today have some of that same branding as they did originally. In terms of society, it was designed to be made available for lower income families. Women were gaining more independence and power, but there's still a huge gap between rich and poor. It's a heavily Christian society. There's a focus on the traditional family values of the past, but people are nostalgic for a better time, which we can see through the Regency characters. Now, politically, we don't see so much of this influence on the actual product itself, but it's worthwhile remembering that the Conservative government had older, more traditional values, and they were in power at the time, and that also Winston Churchill had just stepped down from being Prime Minister. Hopefully you guys found that useful. Here are our key terms for today. If you haven't already, please subscribe, hit the button down below, and if you click the little bell icon next to it, then you get instant notifications every time I upload a new video. And I shall see you guys next time for another video.